The Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast is produced by KFUO Radio, and for more than 100 years, KFUO Radio has been a faithful companion in Christ, a steady voice of teaching, comfort, and truth in a noisy world. Share-a-thon is happening April 30th through May 2nd, and we're celebrating the ministry God continues to sustain through listeners like you. Join us for 3 days of gratitude, stories, and opportunities to give. Learn more or give now at kfuo.org. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
And I'm Rachel.
Today we have a book club wrap-up episode, and boy, this is a fun one. Rachel, what are we doing?
We are talking about our spring book club pick, Elizabeth Goudge's novel, The Little White Horse. We'll talk at some length at some point about what kind of book this is exactly, but yeah, it is. We wanted something that was a little bit youthful and a little bit fantastic, and I think this book definitely checked both of those boxes. It's a story of Maria Merriweather, although she's British, so who knows? Maybe she's Mariah Merriweather, and I've been saying it wrong in my head.
She was Mariah in my audiobook.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
Well, Maria/Mariah Merriweather, who is an orphan who comes from London to live with her cousin at Moonacre Manor, an idyllic castle, basically, in the middle of the secluded valley where everything seems perfect, and yet it isn't. Turns out there are some tasks that Maria/Mariah needs to see through to bring some healing to this place that on the surface seems so blissful and yet needs her touch. So that is our book, The Little White Horse. We are just, as we record this, wrapping up 5 days, give or take, of discussion in our Facebook group. Special thanks to the 25 women who attended. This was not our most highly attended book club, probably because this is not our best known book or author.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I have really, really, really enjoyed the conversations. The insights that our ladies have brought into our discussion of this book are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really privileged to have been able to moderate this discussion. But I will toss it to you. You were neither of you terrifically active in our discussion. And I think that's on purpose. So you have fresh takes for today.
Sure, it was
What did you
on purpose. Yeah, that's why.
I'm covering for you, Sarah.
I forgot that we were recording today, so it's fine. All good. I did read the book, though.
You did. I know, because you kept my messenger feed very full with your hot takes on various portions of it as you went through it. So I can confirm that you have read this book and enjoyed it very much. But I will toss it to you and ask, what did you think of the book, Sarah? And Erin?
I loved it. I loved it so much. My husband got me into fairy tale fantasy kind of stuff. Also, you said originally that if I loved Princess and the Goblin, that I would love this one. And that was absolutely accurate. I really love stories that have some kind of magical fantasy kind of thing underlying them. And apparently YA novels that have that in them are just really delightful. You don't have to try too hard to see what's going on. And yet there's also deeper things that are happening too. Like there's stuff you can think about. It's a quaint little story, but there's like, it's not simple and silly. Like it actually means something. I bought a hardcover book because I like being able to read visually what I'm reading. But there was no like official audiobook, but I did find, I forget what it was called, but it was on YouTube where they put old, like retired out of print. It was an out of print audiobook on YouTube. So I listened to it, and like you could tell it was like older CD stuff.
Probably on cassette the first time.
On tape, actual. Yeah. So I listened to it while I was reading it, because that way I can like visually remember where stuff is in the book. Otherwise I have no points of reference. And also that forces me to slow down because when I just read a book, I read way too quickly and then I don't actually absorb anything. So, but yes, so it was a British accent. So her name was Mariah. And that also helped me get through the first part because you also had mentioned that it might start a little slow.
I did warn you.
And to stick with it. And I started reading it without the audiobook first. And I was like, I don't know that I can do this, Rachel. Then I found the audiobook and it was great because I just sped through that first part and I was hooked pretty quickly then at that point. I loved the story. I could predict slightly what was going to happen because it's YA and I was like, obviously these things are going to connect at some
Here's the
point.
problem that's going to need to be solved.
Yeah, but I didn't know how it was going to, like I knew there were things that were going to eventually happen, but I didn't know how. And that was the fun part because it was very cute how things ended up, how people were related and the unicorn that showed up. And I love unicorns. And it was very magical. Like I was reading it, but I was listening to it and like I could see it all happening in my head. So it was fun. I loved it. I might actually reread this one. I don't reread a lot of books. It's not really my thing. But this one might deserve a reread when I need something light and delightful to read in my life. So yes, 5 stars. Highly recommend.
I do reread books, and this was a reread for me, and it will not be the last reread for me.
Yeah.
All right, Erin.
I also loved it. It was a delight. I had no trouble getting into it from the very beginning, and maybe because I don't know if it's because I have read some other Elizabeth Goudge books in the past, and so the style is maybe it was more familiar, and so it didn't have any challenge to go right in. But I was immediately drawn into, like, at first I did not understand that Mr. Wiggins was a dog, and once that became clear, then the carriage ride was much more understandable of like the dynamics between the characters. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it immediately drew me in. I also continue to really appreciate Elizabeth Goudge has a lovely style. It's very descriptive. So I didn't do, Sarah, you shared the link to the audio, but I didn't do it because I was just so enjoying just picturing everything in my brain as I read it, because she is such beautifully descriptive language. It's so easy to just down to the shades of colors and the layers of flowers and all of that.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but I guess I'll get right to it. There were also some parts that were like, I was like, huh. And it was like, okay, this is, you can tell like this thing was written in a different time. And
sure was.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, these are second cousins marrying and first cousins marrying.
Yeah.
And we got first cousins marrying and then second cousins marrying.
I noticed that too.
And
like, that's
so I'm
odd.
like, what is our current, that may have made me wonder, and I didn't define anything, but it made me wonder, like, what is our current stance? Like, how consanguineous is too consanguineous? Like, what
as my
is
cousin likes to remind me, in Arkansas, it's still illegal to marry your cousin. She lives in Arkansas.
Exactly. Like, it is a relatively recent thing that we've decided cousins are too close.
Yeah.
Second cousins to me still feel too close, mainly because of how I relate to, like, in my own family, how I see those relationships. I'm like, oh, that would be weird. That would be weird. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you're listening to this, you're all too young, but you don't want to marry each other.
No.
So that part threw me off. And then also it made me stop, and I was like, no, Erin, you've got to remember this is a fairy tale, but whatever. But I did a little math, as I do sometimes. You know how I am, where I'm like, but what is this really meaning? And as near as I can tell, she was 14 years old when she got married, maybe 15 at the top end, but that's really reaching for what is not stated. And so again, I was like, whoa, that's real young. And so I had more of a sense that this was set, like I would have imagined without it being a fairy tale, that this was set in like the late 1800s.
I believe 1840 is the setting for this.
Yeah,
mid 1800s.
that's about
She
right.
wrote it in. She published it in 1946, but it was set in around 1840.
Yeah.
So this is Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte territory here.
It is.
It is,
which
still a bit
still
young
seems pretty young in my
for that
mind.
era.
But
Right.
those are things that like my modern sensibility like clashed into it. I noticed, and so it took me out of the story a little bit, and I had to be intentional about like, okay, I'm just gonna let that be because it's a fairy tale. This isn't a guide for my life. So just enjoy the story.
Oh.
But those were a couple things that as I read it did but a whole lot of the rest I was just there for the story. It was delight. Pure delight.
Yeah. No, thanks for pointing that out. I have to realize that my impressions of details like that are shaped by my own family history, where I had a great aunt who married at age 13 with parental consent.
Yeah.
And my own grandmother got married at age 16 to her brother-in-law, actually. So, I think for me, that does not feel nearly as strange as it would to somebody who did not have that family backstory.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. That is, now that I look back on that, I'm like, that is a little weird.
Yeah, I think the cousins marrying cousins, I had to stop and pause for a hot second, and I was like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that happened. I mean, we see it in Gone with the Wind, honestly. A lot of books from this era harken back to an earlier age where first cousin was not seen as consanguineous in most circumstances. If you were royalty, maybe. But yeah, like Jane Austen, Mansfield Park, Annie Price marries her cousin. And it's the coolest thing in the world in context.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. This is a historical book that is looking back to an even more historical time. And then of course there's the fairy tale element as well. Right. Although I like calling it fairy tale. I'm a little less. This was a question I thought about putting in the group, but I didn't. So you guys are getting a fresh one.
Hey.
A fresh one. So obviously there are fantastic elements in this book.
Yeah.
I was tempted at first to call it magical realism, which is a genre, because it's full on fantasy.
Right.
There's just like, it's realism with some magical elements thrown in.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, I'm not necessarily comfortable calling it magic. I almost want to call it miraculous. And I wonder what you think. Would you call what happens in this book closer to magic or to miracle?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
The mere fact that I am asking the question explains part of the reason why I love this book so much. Because there is a sanctity and a holiness about even the fantasy elements.
Yeah.
That is really delightful.
Yeah. I usually think of like miraculous as being more of a point in time event, not an ongoing state. And so, for example, like I think of it as like this not natural event occurred. That is the miracle. Magic in this story, like we've got Rolf, the dog who might be a lion. Like
Rolf, we spell it with a W here.
Yes.
That Rolf.
With that line. So like his existence is an ongoing, like his presence is an ongoing. At first you don't realize that he is magical, but then it becomes clear that, oh no, he is actually, there's an element
a
of
magical creature.
the fantastic to him. And so that doesn't, to me, I wouldn't categorize as miraculous because it's not it's not an event. So I guess that's my thought.
Okay.
I do see what you're saying, but I feel like maybe it's both. Maybe there's elements of both magical realism and miraculous elements within.
And certainly I think what strikes me about it is that the supernatural elements of the book, there's no whiff of sorcery attached to them.
No.
Right.
No.
And in that way, they do have just a little bit holier kind of feel to them.
It's like wholesome fairy tale.
Very wholesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm struggling to like define how I would define the difference between like a miracle or fantasy. I feel like there's some element of whether or not God is actually attached to it. Like not necessarily it's like fantasy, like a good fantasy is like some non-Christian, but like not in a bad way. This is gonna sound really weird because I don't really know what words I'm putting together in my brain. But,
you have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes, Sarah. Go on.
Like fantasy is like, quote, good forces happening. That isn't necessarily like our Christian understanding of God, which I would definitely attach to a miracle. I think that's what I'm going with. Like the things that happen that like, I have to call her Mariah because that's how she is in my head. When she's like, we need to give this back to God, and like the stuff on the hill, the Paradise Hill.
Paradise Hill, yes.
Like that I think would verge into miraculous.
Agreed.
Of like the things surrounding that, because it is definitely attached to something relating to God. But like the dog / lion, or like the horses coming in off of the sea, I don't know that I would qualify that as miraculous as much as just like straight up good quality fantasy fairy tale stuff. I don't know. Maybe fairy tale, because it's good, has some connection to God anyway. And so I'm just parsing things that don't need to be parsed, but I don't know.
You answered the question exactly as you should. I don't know. And that is one of the delightful things about this story. Elizabeth Goudge, of course, was a woman of deep faith. Maybe not exactly in the Book of Concord sense necessarily, but a devout Anglican. And she often infuses, I would almost, not necessarily always fairy tale elements in her stories, but a whole lot of slightly uncanny things. Things that happen that you're like, there's no logical reason they should have lined up that way. It just happened exactly as it was supposed to happen, that all of these characters ended up in the right place in the right time to have this major breakthrough.
Like Loveday Minette just like showing up, and she happens to be the perfect character that fills exactly this one spot in the book. It's like, oh, well, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
It made sense.
But I think you could almost look at this as if fantasy met the concept of providence.
Yeah.
Where and isn't that the way so often that life is for us, that something happens and you're like, by all accounts, that doesn't make sense. And yet it was such a gift that it happened that way. Right. Am I prepared to call it a miraculous happening? I would be scared to go that far, to say that God made this miracle happen in my life. But if I squint at it, that kind of may be what it looks like.
Yeah.
And that happens to us in the Christian life quite often. But we don't, obviously we don't fixate on it. We just say, thank you, Lord, and move on. And I think that phenomenon is sort of brought to its extreme in this book.
Yeah.
Can we say for sure whether it was coincidence or magic or a miraculous gift from on high? No, we can't. And that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
That it sort of lives in this uncanny space. But that gives it both a great beauty, but also a little bit of eeriness to it.
Yeah.
It gives the book a little bit of edge that it might not have otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that a teenager has such an enormous force and power over adults and like really terrible people, like even that in itself, just the whole premise of that is, I don't know, maybe
that
that's
is
miraculous.
also classic. I mean,
oh,
that's
sure,
ahead of time as far as like YA,
classic hero
literature
heroine.
of like the teenagers.
And yet I can think of at least two teenagers in my own life, including one of my own children, that probably could get the grown-ups on board in the same way that Mariah does.
Yeah.
Because some kids are really just gifted with that force of personality and the conviction of will that they're able to achieve great acts of persuasion that don't seem logically possible.
Yeah.
And so that's a great thing about this character, right? You can look at her and say, how is she able to persuade her uncle to give away a valuable piece of real estate just because it seems like the thing that needs to be done to spiritually heal this town?
Right.
And yet it's still within the realm of logical possibility.
Yeah.
Because some teenagers have that gift. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't tell them they have that gift because they will not use it well. So I want to ask you about questions in depth that you want to talk about. But before we do, there's one that I'm going to force the question on because I think it's important to think through this question of, if you were a librarian, where would you shelve this book? Of course, common library shelves would be for children's, middle grade, YA, general adult fiction. Then you've got your romance, your fantasy, your mystery and suspense, your Christian versus non-Christian. Where would you, if you were the librarian, stick it?
I think I would put it in middle grades. And I should know more because my sister is a middle grade librarian. But I assume that then from there, they probably do have subcategories. But I would definitely place it in middle grade as far as like the demographic goes. And then I think I would put it in, I don't know, whatever category Narnia is in. I would put it in that same. I think
they usually put that one in fantasy.
In fantasy, I think I would. I think I would probably. In my mind, there are enough fantastical elements, and it also has like that, fantasy / fairy tale. So I think that's where I would. I think that's where I would put it. Middle grade, fantasy, fairy tale. That section of the shelf.
For clarification, is YA, is that more like high school? Because I don't know category. I should also
deep sigh. Okay, so YA
in a grade school.
YA, as it used to be, was and I know we have some librarians among our listenership. Please clarify. My experience comes from trying to categorize books on the publisher end of things.
For this.
YA used to be just one step above middle grade. If you think of middle grade novels as being aimed for that like 4th through 8th grade level, like the Narnia books, like the Little House books, those would fall in middle grade. And so YA would be the category for kids just older than that, who aren't ready for grown-up literature yet, but are looking for something a little bit meatier.
Yeah.
Now, what has happened, this is speaking anecdotally. I do not have sources for this. This is just what I've observed. A few years ago, maybe say 10 to 20, in the 10 to 20 range, a bunch of young adults decided that they liked YA because they were easy, they were fun. The character, there were less of the sort of dark grown-up themes in them. And so a whole lot of late college students and 20-somethings started very proudly saying, I read YA, including me back in the day. And so as a result, the people who published YA, as the sort of innocence of the high schoolers began to diminish and the market started to skew older, a lot of the YA books started to take on some more, let's just say, adult elements and themes, not terrifically edifying to the young mind. So I tend to be very careful about calling something YA nowadays because I realize that it may include some elements that are perhaps not as wholesome. However, I think when this book was published, YA would be the place to put it. Yeah. Because it has a teenage heroine. It is aimed towards, young readers. And yet it's a little bit more complex than, a a beginning novel.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer to a short question.
Well,
but
that's really helpful.
Yeah.
I was leaning more toward YA, but I wasn't entirely sure because like fourth grade feels too young for this.
Mm-hmm.
I would think like more of a coming of age. Is that the right age group? I know
Yeah.
nothing about this. So
I
like
would-
12,
I would say so,
13-year-olds, like eighth grade.
That's its
freshman
own
high
genre.
school.
You could just declare it's coming of age.
All right, then
genre.
it's coming of
Yeah.
age because
Coming
that's
of
what
age.
happens.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm also riding the line between fantasy and fairy tale because I don't entirely know what the difference is. But it really, really, really felt like Snow White to me reading it because of her
Oh.
connection with animals,
Yeah.
her very distinct ability to like summon the creatures and they just go with her everywhere.
Oh, that is so funny because this book would have been written very soon after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs swept the world. Like within 6-7 years
That's my favorite.
of that movie coming out, this book was written. Probably 5 to 6 years.
So I might actually classify it more like a fairy tale because there are some scary parts of it, but like it's also it just feels very like cheery, happy, super over the top happy ending. Everyone is cheery. The crazy, horrible, terrible people all turn to the good side and everyone lives happily ever. Like that, the ending feels very fairy tale to me.
I don't know. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Definitely.
But you're right. I hadn't thought about it in terms of Snow White with her birds and deer and bunnies. And Mariah is wandering around with her pet lion, her little tiny pony, Periwinkle the pony, and her tame hare and her King Charles Spaniel. I mean,
the animals go everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I was
okay.
very Snow White vibes.
Yeah. So I think probably that you guys have put the nail on the head there. Wait, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. Let me get my idiom straight here. But the question is a good one because the book does have elements of mystery. It does have elements of romance. I mean, she gets married at the end to her childhood sweetheart, has 10 babies. That's romance right there.
Right. Very fairy tale. All of the best things that could possibly happen have happened.
Yep.
Yes. There is that magical realism. It is obviously a literary classic. So there are lots of places where this book could go. The question of whether it is sacred or secular, I think we all decided it was secular, but with significant sacred elements to the point where let's face it, a librarian who was hostile to faith would probably shelve it in sacred literature just to sort of quarantine it a little bit.
That's true.
Right.
But I do agree with several of our ladies in the lounge who said, of course I would put this in secular literature. The faith stuff shows up because that's part of the real life of the characters. It's not like, put there on purpose.
Right.
It's because this is what the characters go to church. That's just what they do.
Yeah. It's very generically sacred too.
Right.
Very generic.
Very generic. Yes.
I mean, it's Christian, but like, yeah.
And I think writing as she did in the 1940s, a lot of our genres at that time, as we think of for marketing and library shelving purposes, were not as siloed as they are today.
Yeah.
That I think she wrote the book because she just wanted to write the book. She liked the story and didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about, so when I give this to my publisher, what BISAC code is the marketing team going to put on it? And what age range is going to be assigned to it arbitrarily? Yeah. So she was, I think, freer than many of our authors are today to write a book that really transcends a lot of categories.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I see you looking it up. You're trying to see where it's categorized, aren't you?
If mine has a category, but I don't think it does.
As I was sitting here thinking about, all of a sudden I was also struck. I don't really understand. It's another just reflection on the book. I feel like the title is odd. Like the white horse plays hardly any role in this book, and it's the whole title. And I'm not sure if I think it should have a different title.
That's interesting.
The white horse shows up twice.
Exactly. Like it's once at the very beginning and then
although
I guess three times.
It's in the seal of the Merriweather family too. Though.
It's in the painting. It's in the story. Plays a huge role in the family story.
That's true. Yeah. because it's the whole thing about
but it's still the title of the whole book. I'm not
the princess.
I'm not sure I'm persuaded that it's.
Well, you know who else agreed with you on that?
Oh, who?
The folks who bought the movie rights.
Oh, okay.
It's not a very compelling title.
There is a movie based on this, and it is called The Secret of Moonacre.
Yes, you're right.
We actually own it. It's a fun movie. My girls admit that it's an okay movie, but they don't like to think of it as being the same story as the book. Because they really did. They made Robin a bad boy. They made the Moon Princess a witch. You know, like, I know, right? They took out all the sacred elements and just replaced them with straight up magical sorcery, which is hardly one reason why I notice those, sacred elements and appreciate them all the more. It's a fun movie. Very steampunk, actually. But they obviously decided that The Little White Horse was not a compelling title.
Yeah,
and went in a
really
different direction.
I don't know that I like The Secret of Moonacre, but
so what would you title it, Erin?
I'm gonna have to. I'll keep thinking about it. I don't have a title yet, but maybe I'll have a title before we finish.
Okay,
we'll see. But that might be. And any other ladies who listen to this, if you have an idea on an alternative title or want to make a case for why The Little White Horse is actually the best title.
Yeah,
I will say I didn't care for the fact that it mentioned a horse when the horse is so obviously a unicorn.
Yeah.
Is a horse a unicorn, or should it be the little white unicorn?
Yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, that's a great question. And actually, that is the title may be one reason why it took me so many years to pull this book off my shelf.
Yeah,
I was like, sounds like My Friend Flicka, which is not a book that I have. That I enjoyed very much. I'm not big on horse books.
The title of that book, but yeah, I definitely read that book.
Yeah,
in middle grades.
Yeah.
Also, Black Beauty, Misty of Chincoteague. There's a whole genre of horse-related novels. Many of which I read. None of which made it to my top list of favorites. And so, The Little White Horse, I did not realize it was fantasy. I did not realize it was not actually about the horse.
Right. That's the thing. It's not about the horse.
Yeah.
So I think that's a valid criticism, Erin.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep.
All right. While Erin is thinking of a suitable alternate title for this book, I want to open up the conversation to both of you more broadly. Were there any questions in our book club that you wanted to dig into more deeply?
Well, I just want to talk about female curiosity, so we're going to talk about question 4. Because question 4 is talking about the ladies in the book, which I did find the differences between them very curious.
Okay,
we have a curious person.
We have 4 ladies altogether. For reference, those of you who are still working through the book, we have 4 ladies altogether. One of them will leave out. She's the Moon Princess.
Yeah,
She's like from history. But then there's 3 main ladies in the book. We have Merriweather, the orphan, who is
an orphan.
Curious, obsessed with fashion, audacious, very courageous as well, and feels this strong sense of gratitude to her uncle and to the community of Moonacre for giving her a home, but also this sense of responsibility for making things right that have gone wrong in it. So we got Mariah. We've got Miss Heliotrope, her governess, who is a very quality person, but people don't always see that immediately. If you can meet Miss Heliotrope and automatically recognize her quality, you also are quality.
Yeah.
Because she looks ridiculous, frankly. She is a beanpole of a woman with a red nose, and the nose is not red from whiskey, it's red from years of acid reflux.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand the connection either. But as someone who has suffered from GERD at times in my life, I really feel for Miss Heliotrope.
Same.
She is a woman who has carried a great heartbreak for many years and has done so with fortitude, has loved Mariah when everyone else thought she was kind of an ugly infant, and has done all that she could, including spanking the child, to make sure that her soul is in the right place. There's Miss Heliotrope. And then we have Loveday Minette, who is this mysterious... Well, she is the epitome of delicate lovely, gentle femininity who got into a big row with her fiance years ago over whether pink geraniums could be.
That's so ridiculous.
Aren't so many lovers' quarrels, though?
Yeah.
I mean, this sort of caricature is it, but at the same time, let's be honest. People have broken up over sillier things than pink geraniums.
It's true.
And then, but as she goes through the story, we realize that she is living with a lot of regret, that she is a survivor, and that she has a lot to teach about the importance of doing all you can to live in harmony with people around you.
Yeah.
So 3 different pictures of femininity here. Sarah, take it away.
Oh. So your question was, how would you think Elizabeth Goudge would define the ideal woman? Why is it significant that Moonacre Manor goes from being a certified he-man, woman-hating bachelor pad, which I found funny that they kept like, we don't like women here. Like, okay, like, all right. To a harmonious family home by the end of the book. How do Mariah and Miss Heliotrope and also Loveday facilitate this transition? Also, I had to look up heliotrope. So I was like, I know this word, and I could not figure out why. And then I looked it up and realized it's like this bright purple color. And then I was really amused that Miss Heliotrope wears like black and gray all the time. But her name is this bright color. It's like, there must be something there. I don't know. You wouldn't name somebody Heliotrope without having a reason for dressing up the character. I don't know. Like, she's actually this
I think
colorful
it's
person.
but it's because she's been grieving her heartbreak her
That's
whole
true.
adult life.
And the love
I
story.
like to think that at the end she does start dressing in colors.
I know, right?
I imagine she
the love
does.
story of her and Old Parson is honestly my favorite one of the whole book.
Yes.
It's just because I didn't see it coming. And then they made the connection. And then you're like, oh, I know they're going to get together by the end. And you didn't know how it was going to happen. It was just really adorable. They missed the dinner because they were just talking for so long.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a beautiful story where they had fallen in love, but her father had said she couldn't marry him because he was an atheist. Good man, by the way.
Yeah.
And then he turns into a person.
So he went away and then, fell off a horse, found his faith, became a parson, but they never reconnected until they were both like 60.
Yeah. Adorable.
And it is adorable.
Maybe because I'm an adult, I find that adults finding adults in love stories more compelling than a 14-year-old with a semi-imaginary boyfriend. That part was strange.
He's so cute, though.
Yeah. I suppose if I were 14, I would find that very, very compelling, but I am not 14 anymore.
My 14-year-old, because I had a 14-year-old when we first read this, found it very, very compelling.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. Yep. So I found it really intriguing that female curiosity was something that was constantly harped on. And I don't entirely know if by the end it was any better, because it was, in the end, it was her female curiosity, I suppose, that ended up saving the day. Because if she wasn't constantly curious about all of these things that were happening and willing to explore and figure stuff out, she wouldn't have been able to actually solve any of the problems. Like trying to figure out where the pink geraniums were and remembering where it was and finding Marmaduke Scarlet's room. And, it's like I identify a lot with that because she's constantly asking questions and curious about things. And I also live in that space of just constantly being curious about stuff. So I was almost personally offended the first time that it was oh, female curiosity is a terrible thing. I'm like, no, it's not.
Okay, so let's put this in context.
Yeah.
She is, this first comes up when she's leaving church. And unlike most Lutheran pastors, Old Parson has no trouble as he shakes hands as everyone's leaving in either scolding them or praising them for things that they've done. And, basically imagine if you're leaving the church and you hear the pastor shaking the hand of the guy in front of you being like, I heard you beat your wife again, sir. Don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I heard that you stayed home so that your wife could go out and get a manicure. Good job, sir. He does this as they're leaving. Leaving the church. And Mariah thinks on her first week, well, he doesn't know me yet. He doesn't have anything. So he of course, does. He's got a quick eye. So he criticizes her for her vanity and obsession with her clothing. That's a legitimate criticism, I think. But then he says to her, excessive female curiosity is not to be commended. Nip it in the bud, my dear, while there is time.
Yeah.
All right. But then think about the sentence right after this. Gentlemen, it seemed, did not like females to be curious, though it was difficult to see how one could find out what one wanted to know if one wasn't.
Yeah.
So you've got this. It is. This might be the one area in which Goudge is saying, despite all of Old Parsons' wisdom, he might be a little off in this. He might be just another gentleman. And of course, Maria does learn how to modulate her curiosity.
She
like
does.
when she waits to go into the kitchen, doesn't just barge in and invade. So she does learn how to modulate it a little bit. But without her curiosity, Old Parson would not have worked things out with Miss Heliotrope.
Right.
So he himself is the beneficiary of it.
Okay, but is this sort of an issue of like, it's excessive?
That's a good question.
It's not. It's like the whole like money is the root of all evil. No, it doesn't say that. It says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Root of all kinds of evil.
That, yeah, you're right. All kinds of, not all evil. But anyway, it doesn't say that female curiosity is actually the bad thing. It's excessive, and that's like pushing her to.
And you're right. That's
where she isn't supposed to go, and she should actually be waiting to be invited into, this, Marmaduke's domain. Like this is his. Yeah. The kitchen is his place, and she shouldn't just barge in on that. And
I almost feel like she's riding that line a little bit, though, with getting Sir Benjamin and Loveday back together.
Okay, so she misquoted him. I just went back to the original. You're right, Erin. Old Parson, what he actually said, because the first quote I read was her remembering it.
That must be the one.
Okay.
He says, neatness of attire is to be commended in a woman, but not vanity. Vanity is of the devil. So we've already got this.
Okay.
All right. You like looking nice. That's a good thing.
Right.
Don't take it too far.
Yeah.
And then he says, and excessive female curiosity is not to be commended either.
Yeah.
So this idea of him trying to help her take these gifts of fastidiousness, of curiosity, and regulate them.
Yeah.
And that is sort of what she spends the whole book doing.
Yeah.
Honestly, both in terms of her obsession with her clothing. It's so funny. I am not a fashion maven. So I find her obsession with clothes a little bit. I'm more of the Miss Heliotrope.
I understand it.
What I wore yesterday is the same sort of thing I'm going to wear today.
I have so much joy picking out my clothes.
You're a
every morning.
Mariah.
I am a
You're
Mariah.
a Mariah.
Yes.
It's true. I identify very strongly with her. It's true.
So this process of her learning to regulate her own instincts is a strong theme in the book.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, probably why it feels like a coming of age story to me, because there is a lot of personal growth that happens in Mariah throughout the book. I think, I don't know, maybe this is my closet feminism coming out or something, but like, why is it female curiosity? Are guys okay to be curious and not females?
So
like,
if
what?
he had just said excessive curiosity, you would have been
I probably wouldn't have been quite so offended. Maybe, I don't know, because I am a naturally really curious person. So I don't know, maybe I need to curb my own excessive curiosity. But like, I don't know.
I think sometimes female curiosity can be a busybody.
Sure, yeah. And
that's, there is this type.
Actually just a reference back to Eve. Like
maybe. Yeah.
You're going to know you eat this fruit, you're going to know all of these things.
But Adam didn't stop her.
I know, but that's because curiosity wasn't his. That's not his issue.
Yeah.
That was Eve's issue.
I think it is verging on like the busybody gossipy, because that is something that is frequently characterized as a female trait. And like, if we're going in that direction, that does not get you anywhere healthy. But she is really verging on being a busybody in order to make the things happen that actually end up happening.
There's a purpose to it.
Yeah, she is really close to like actually inserting herself in places that actually shouldn't be.
There's almost like elements of like Emma, Jane Austen's Emma,
Yes.
like who like thought she knew how things should be forever, and she screwed a lot of things up.
Yeah.
It did all work out.
Like Mariah just, waltzing off in the middle of the night to some really evil man's mansion to go solve a problem. Like, okay, that's...
You do get those sort of I can fix him vibes.
Yes. Yeah.
But that is a good question that I will turn it back on you. Is there a difference between male and female curiosity? Is female curiosity its own category? We won't answer that here today, but it is one more question this book raises.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
And we're living many years after this book was written, so I am curious what Elizabeth Goudge would have actually...
Oh man, I can't wait to talk with her someday.
Yeah, because like my husband and I, like that is one of our love languages. We are just curious together. That's how we connect. Just
so cute.
Randomly researching things together. Yeah. So I don't know. I must retain my curiosity.
Yes, but there is good curiosity, and then there is bad curiosity.
Yeah,
that is true.
Learning to recognize the difference.
Yeah, not being very curious that I know things I shouldn't know, and that's that's the same for Mariah too. But she has to end up knowing things at a certain level. Like she connects Loveday's story, and Loveday asks her like, "Are people talking to you about me?" She's like, "No, I just figured it out."
Yeah. But there's the curiosity that's like, how was your day, dear? And then there's the curiosity that like reads your emails behind your back.
Yeah.
Like, those are different kinds of curiosity.
That is true. Yes. Yeah. But like excessive anything can be bad. It's not.
Indeed. Excessive vanity, excessive curiosity, like whatever your natural bent is, learn to curb it a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what Mariah learns as she comes of age.
Yeah. And Miss Heliotrope learns how to be okay with that too.
Yeah. Oh, I feel her so strongly. She's not Mariah's mother, but she's in the place of her mother.
Yeah.
And as she's learning to sort of allow Mariah to spread her wings a little bit and have more freedom than she's ever known. Oh, that hurts. I'm sure Miss Heliotrope's indigestion got worse before it got better throughout the book.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, Erin, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I think I'm going to tackle the next question 5. How does this book school us in the art of dealing with old sins? It's common in our society to take a hands-off, head in the sand approach to problems that we don't feel personally responsible for. Yet this doesn't always work, especially when it comes to deeply entrenched sins, longstanding conflicts or misunderstandings, intergenerational trauma. So where do we see these kinds of like longstanding sins, and how does Mariah's curiosity, audacity, and sense of personal responsibility help her bring peace and healing? So one, I feel like to an extent, Elizabeth Goudge since this is sort of a fairy tale, yes, Mariah is a 14-year-old girl in this, but she's also the princess of the kingdom, right? And so absolutely. It's like, she didn't cause the rift back in the day, but it is essentially, this is her kingdom, and it is therefore her responsibility to fix it. So I feel like Elizabeth wasn't really saying that she was taking this on sort of like that was a surprise that she would take it on, and an exceptional thing that she would take on the goal of repairing these, relationships that had been broken all this time ago. Rather, it was more of a, well, if this is who you are, so therefore this is actually your problem to fix. It is actually for you to fix it. I think there is definitely that's also a fine line, and I think that's something that comes with with age and hindsight of like knowing when something has been given to you to be responsible for and to take action, and when it has not.
Mm.
And discerning between those situations, that's the challenge of being a human.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think Elizabeth was very intentional about making it clear that it was, and in fact, to an extent, like, that was a failing of, oh, now I've forgotten her cousin. Well, Benjamin. Thank you, Benjamin.
Sir Benjamin Merriweather.
Yes, Sir Benjamin. That he did not actually. He should have. That was his responsibility as well, and he had not done that. He should have, and instead he just let it. Well, I didn't cause it, and so I'll just carry on because I didn't cause the problem, and he just let it lie, and I think Elizabeth was like, she does. I don't recall that she actually explicitly said somewhere that it was his failing, that he didn't. But
it is heavily implied.
Yeah, it's heavily implied, and the fact that Mariah was basically able to call him on it, and he would acknowledge it, like, oh yeah, you're right. That really the hill is really God's. I should give up the sheep there and the wool, and it really isn't mine to benefit from. You're right. And so he didn't put up any argument, because he was like, yeah, you're right. I can't deny it if you call me out on it plainly like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Mariah does pretty explicitly say, or at least in her head, that she did not want to be the moon princess that caused everything to break again. So like she does pretty explicitly realize that this is her problem to solve, and she's going to, like, she is very determined to do it.
Yeah. I love the way this book sort of becomes an object lesson in how to think about these old sins, that it doesn't go away if you just ignore it.
Yeah.
No matter how, if something breaks, no amount of time is going to unbreak it.
Yeah.
And so we have this hundreds of years later, pretty much, Mariah is looking back at her own family's history and realize, oh, this got broken bad. And I could do like Sir Benjamin and just be like, well, I didn't break it. Or I could ask the question, what would it take to unbreak it?
Yeah.
What would it take to actually bring peace and reconciliation, not only between, Sir Benjamin and Loveday, that's a minor project, not only between the old parson and Miss Heliotrope, minor project, love all these side projects, but also peace between my family and what's their last name? The de Coqs or whatever. Coq de Noir. I'm sorry. I'm blanking on it for a moment. What would it take to bring peace between my family and our distant relations with from whom we've been estranged for generations?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned Paradise Hill, peace between our family and God, because we realized that a long time ago, we did a real bad thing that we could have undone, but we've chosen not to because it was done.
Yeah.
We stole Paradise Hill from the monks, kicked them out, and have been profiting off of it ever since. And I think Mariah rightly realizes that sometimes when things get broken, you have to go back to where the break happened, and mend it there.
Yeah.
You have to give Paradise Hill back, even if the monks aren't there to claim it. Symbolically, you have to let it go.
Yeah.
And you have to give the jewels back to the family that says you stole them, even though you totally didn't.
Yeah.
And I like that thinking about whatever it takes, however long ago it happened, let's go back and make it right.
Yeah.
That is for me the key takeaway from this book. So I'm glad you wanted to talk about that question, because the payoff at the end is so good.
It is.
It's so good.
Yeah.
There's peace. There's reconciliation between these two sides of the family that have been enemies for years. Miss Heliotrope and old parson get married. Robin and Maria get married. Robin and Mariah get married. Benjamin and Loveday get married. There's babies. There's peace. There's prosperity. There's fish on the table, which there hasn't been for a while.
Right.
And it's just
from the bay.
And Marmaduke Scarlet puts together the most amazing mouth-watering feast, which would have been even more amazing and mouth-watering in 1946 Britain when this book was written and all the kids were still on wartime rationing. It took me a while to figure out exactly why there is so much description of food in this book. And then I realized, when Elizabeth Goudge wrote this, she and everyone she knew had been hungry for years.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's impressive.
It is a feast. It is a feast for the senses.
So, it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for reading the book with me. I enjoyed it. I've read it with my girls before. I've read it alongside my mother, but I've never read it with friends, and that made it very, very special. I think, though, since we're getting right up on an hour here, we should probably talk about what our next book is going to be.
Yes.
Always exciting to close one book and open another. This book will be, I should have pulled it up beforehand. We are going to read this for our summer read. And often in the summer, we read fiction. But we just finished a book that is very fictional.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about this already. There's a book that I read this spring that I really, really enjoyed and benefited from. It is by one of our Lutheran pastors and seminary professors, but spoke to my soul in some really profound ways. And so I'm excited to share it with you. Even if you're used to reading page-turning fiction on your beach holiday, may I instead recommend this, or alongside recommend this.
There you go.
Yes. Read the chicklet, but also read our summer book club read, which is Ryan Tinetti's book, The Quiet Ambition, Scripture's Surprising Antidote to Our Restless Lives.
Yes.
Have you all read this one yet, or is it on your list?
I love it.
I have not read it yet.
Oh, you are in for a treat.
I'm really looking forward to it. I saw it when it first launched, and I thought it looked very intriguing. So I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because Ryan Tinetti, because that's what I call him. He's a member at my church.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I was torn on should I launch all the titles in front of his name, and that's why I stumbled on it. But anyway,
the Reverend Dr. Ryan Tinetti, who I knew when he was just the Reverend Ryan Tinetti because he used to write for the Lutheran Witness blog.
Or all of that because he went as a missionary before.
Oh, that's fantastic!
Seminary.
Definitely,
so I've known him
Ryan.
way. I knew him when he met his wife.
Oh,
yeah.
I want to know that story. I sing with Anne in the seminary choir. Oh, so many Lutheran connections in St. Louis.
So this book, to give you a little quick preview, he spends pretty much the entire book unpacking the spiritual wisdom of 1 Thessalonians 4:11 through 12, where Paul tells the Thessalonians, make it your ambition to live quietly. Which is an ironic statement because ambition and the quiet life don't normally go together.
Yeah.
And so it is a call to slow down a little bit, to live quietly, tend your own business, work with your hands, and walk gracefully toward outsiders, to pull crib verbiage from the book description. I found the book deeply refreshing and not hard. And so hopefully you will find it the same. And I will look forward to reading it with you. I believe our next book club is going to be in July. So watch for that book club event so that you can jump in there and get the book now. I know that this is a time of year where everybody is crazy, myself included. But even a few pages of this wonderful book every couple of days will help calm your soul and keep your eyes focused on the important things. So hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did. And I'm looking forward to rereading it with you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah. Maybe not ironically, we're recording this the week of LCMS convention. So I will be editing it during convention. So this will be very appropriate in the midst of LCMS convention this summer in July.
Good medicine for you during that week, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. It's going to be a wild time. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to reading this. For sure. I just added it to my cart. So I will be purchasing it very, very, very soon. As soon as
Excellent.
complete purchase on my cart. The Quiet Ambition, Scripture's Surprising Antidote to Our Restless Lives by Ryan P. Tinetti. Very much looking forward to that. That is our next book club. We'll have the book club links in our Facebook group. There will be an event happening there. It is asynchronous for all of you who have not attended a book club yet, which means that Rachel posts the questions in the event in the group, and people respond when they have time. And all of the previous book clubs are still available as events.
Absolutely.
In the group. So if you run across one of our previous books and you want to read the discussions, those do still exist in the past events section.
They are so good. I'm always blown away by the quality of discussions we have, whether they're big discussions or little discussions.
Yeah.
They're always amazing.
So you can join us there in our Facebook group, the Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on our Instagram page at Lutheran Ladies Lounge, where we will have these book club discussion questions posted in the week after this episode drops. So those will also be on our Instagram. If you are not on Facebook, you can still participate in those questions. You can find all of our episodes at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on your favorite podcasting app, or on the KFUO radio app. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
And I'm Rachel.
Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a review for us too. If you love the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast, consider financially supporting our producer, KFUO Radio, so we can keep doing what we do. Find out how at kfuo.org/give.